Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you, Mark Stevens. Mark is the best-selling author of the book, The Coach Approach, where he worked with people to find a better way to lead in business and beyond. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Otto. I'm honored.
Of course, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you. So before we go into your personal journey, Mark, if you can give the audience here just a brief general overview, and we are going to dig in deeper into the book later on in the episode, but just what is the coach approach?
Yeah, so in America right now, and a lot of places in the world, we live in the telling approach. I tell you what to do. Otto, you're a young guy, you work for me. Let me tell you what to go do, and you go do it and you come back. And so we live in a society where there's a lot of telling. And people want collaborative effort now and working together, especially the millennials. And so the coach approach is about having open ears and listening to others. What are they saying? Asking powerful questions to draw out of them what's inside of them, and that they would feel valued by that. And then having the heart and mind of curiosity, like what could we do differently here versus the same old way of let me tell you what to do and then you go do it. So that's kind of the coach approach. It's a lifestyle that we can use with our spouses, with our children, but for sure with the people we're leading or coaching in sport, or just on my airplane flight home the other day. I was talking to a young college student, and it was all about me asking questions and getting her to think differently. So that's what it's about.
I like that everyone can use it, no matter whether you are in a leadership position or not. Especially in today's times, Mark, with COVID, the past 2 or 3 years, communication is paramount with the way we communicate with others, whether it's in the workplace or just personally in the community.
Yes.
With other
Yes.
people.
Yeah, no, I think these concepts work whether you're the president of the Rotary Club or you're just a Rotary Club member or you're involved in your church or synagogue. These people, just like I said, Otto, just yesterday on the plane with this college student, I said, where are you going? She said, I'm going to the conference. What are you going to do there? I'm going to learn. Okay, do you have a job when you graduate? No. Well, what would be a really powerful question for you to ask some of these older people there about that could help you land a job? And she never thought of that. And just the question to get her to think was good in itself, and no matter in any format.
Were you going to the same conference or different?
No. I was coming home from Bryant University. I had just spoken to Bryant University and the Project Management Institute up in Rhode Island. And she was just on a flight on her way to a conference. So it's just interesting how in a conversation, I leaned more into listening, asking questions. And at the end, guess what? She felt great. Why? Because I was interested in her. I asked her questions. She felt valued. And she left with value because she was just skipping along to this conference. She said, I'd never been to a conference before, right? And she didn't know what to expect. And so now she's going in with a different mindset of, let me ask some of these veterans of supply chain management is what she was going to. Let me ask them some questions that could really create a win-win situation.
Well, was she studying supply chain management and logistics?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that was the reason for the conference.
Yep.
Okay. That's interesting. I love that. That's a great story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It just goes to your point that this is, I say, to business and beyond. And the reason I said beyond is because sitting on an airplane is beyond. Leading the Rotary Club is beyond. Being a volunteer at your church is beyond. Whatever the beyond is for you, the coach approach is a great way to lead.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's also great for her to take the initiative as far as still in college and going into this conference on her own. I don't know if it was maybe a school requirement or project for a class. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
it
was an opportunity she took up regardless.
Of course. All right, now to go to sort of now spotlight you for a moment, Mark. Are you originally here from the area, the Maryland, DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia area?
58 years. Been here my whole life. I grew up in Prince George's County in Bowie, Maryland. Went to Bowie High School. And then after that, I went to the Ivy League of the Eastern Shore, Salisbury University, wink, wink, uh, and graduated from there and moved back to Bowie. Took a job out in Montgomery County and didn't want to make the commute. And that was 21 years ago. And we decided to move up to Frederick County is where we moved. So been in
Mhm.
Frederick County 21 years. So my whole life here in Maryland, DMV guy.
Yeah, that's great. Bowie's just gone through a tremendous growth. I'm sure back then, you growing up, you said you grew up there all through high school, right?
Yep.
Was
Yeah. It was
very
it was
different.
always steadily growing,
Okay.
and but kind of it was the suburb, like it was like my dad said, oh, we moved way out to Bowie, that was from wherever he was driving to work. But now, like, everybody knows where Bowie is, major intersection there, and 50 and 301, and they put a mall in there, and a lot going on in Bowie now.
Back then, Mark, was Bowie more like farmland compared to how it is now with all these residential new home developments?
Yes, there. I mean, like, there was a turf farm, which is now all houses now, and there's a lot of other places down in Bowie, Southern Bowie, Mitchellville area, which is just totally boomed. They put Flowers High School down there and some other schools. So yeah, so it's changed a lot since when I grew up there for sure.
What did you major in Salisbury?
I majored in computer science.
Oh, comp sci.
I love the challenge, the mental challenge of computer science. I wanted to be an engineer. I just could not pass calculus. So at that time, you could get a degree in program development. So that's what I majored in. I did that for 5 years. But I just realized I'm an extrovert and I was going to dry up sitting in a cubicle. So I had to get out and do something different.
Okay. And I guess afterwards, was it more in other types of roles when you're communicating with people?
Yeah, yeah. So my, what I said, if I could do anything, honestly, I would love to be involved in some kind of ministry stuff, and I'd love to coach high school wrestling. That was my dream. But I was done with school, so it was hard to like get involved in ministry if you don't going to get your master's of divinity. And I didn't want to go back to school to get my teaching degree. But they just started emergency coaches. So now, believe it or not, Otto, probably 70 to 80% of all coaches are not teachers anymore. They're selling real estate, they're doing insurance. Just they can't live on the salary of a teacher, and back in the day you could.
Hmm.
So I became an emergency coach, and I coached high school wrestling for 20 years. And God, in His wisdom and great sense of humor, gave me four daughters, none of which are wrestlers. So I've learned to coach girls lacrosse. I've done that 15 years. And then my local church did hire me kind of like as an assistant, so I didn't have to go get the degrees, and was involved in that for a bunch of years.
What high school did you coach wrestling in?
So I coached. My first job actually was at Model School for the Deaf in Washington, D.C. So Gallaudet University is in Washington, D.C. It's the only liberal arts college in the world for deaf people. So all the teachers signed for every class, all the sports signed, and they had a high school on campus there. So that was my first job. I had to learn how to coach and learn another language at the same time. And then I coached at Bowie High School, my alma mater. I was the second head coach there ever. So that was fun. And then a couple other places in Montgomery County.
Did you wrestle when you were younger?
Yeah, I started when I was in third grade and wrestled all the way through high school. Went to Bowie. We were state champs 2 times at Bowie High School during my time there. So that was a great time. And then I went to Salisbury. They actually were second in the nation the year before I got there
Really?
in wrestling. So I went from being on a state championship team to fourth on the depth chart right out of the gate. And yeah, I lasted about 2 weeks. I was done losing weight. And 2 weeks into it, I realized these guys with beards and stuff would just as soon tear my shoulder off as to give encouragement to me. So yeah, that was a short lived.
I just heard a quote just last week, Mark, and that's why I'm asking. I forgot what coach. I forgot the name of the coach. And you probably know better than I. It's a famous quote. And I probably am butchering it. What did he say? If you wrestle, if you're a wrestler, if you know how to wrestle, you can basically do anything in life, or anything in life afterwards is easy.
Yeah, yeah. Once you wrestle, everything after that's easy.
Yeah, there you go.
I
There,
forget
that's
who said that, but
yeah.
that's kind of, yeah, the quote. Once you've wrestled, everything after that's easy. So yeah. So it's but yeah, that was great. I love doing that. Now my youngest daughter plays college lacrosse, so I like watching, but I'm still evaluating the coach. So that's kind of a hard thing to turn off.
I have three boys, and I just put my youngest one, who was in first grade, just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, to try wrestling, um,
Okay.
because I had him in jujitsu uh, in kindergarten, but his focus wasn't there. And wrestling, I can see his attention span is better, but it's still not there. So I think I might have to wait maybe another season or another year to see. So I'm happy to hear you started at third grade, and I guess it wasn't even late back then. Just nowadays everything for these parents are a competition, and you're putting them here and there, or how soon. And as far as the chances of someone becoming a professional athlete, it's slim to none.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Do you follow the Baltimore Ravens?
I do a little bit.
So number 99, Owe,
Okay.
last name Owea,
Okay.
starts for the Baltimore Ravens in football, and he didn't start football until his junior year of high school.
There you
He
go.
played 1 year of high school, and the next year he got a scholarship to Penn State, and then he played his senior year. So at the end of the day, if you're an athlete, you're going to pick up whatever sport you're at.
Yeah.
It won't take you too long to catch up. So as somebody who's raised four daughters who played lots of sports, let your son get out there, let him have fun, let him wrestle, let him play around, let him wrestle with you on the floor, and don't get caught up in that. It's hard. There's a lot of parental pressure when you're like, oh, my kid's doing this, and my daughter, she played club lacrosse, so it's very, very competitive. To get on the field, it's very demanding. Coaches coming to watch you play, and all these girls are like, oh yeah, I'm going to this school to play and this school to play. And my daughter's sometimes started in clubs, sometimes didn't,
Mm-hmm.
but she's still playing college lacrosse. But a lot of the girls quit just because of the rat race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good to know. So where did the idea from the book come about?
So I hired a coach, somebody to coach me one-on-one, to have kind of break through the glass ceilings that I had in my life, personally and at work. And it just helped a ton. And so my coach said, you should become a coach. And I'm like, well, I've coached sports 35 years. And he goes, no, then you should be a leadership coach like me. And I was like, okay. And so I read 10 books on coaching.
Okay.
Um, and I just got totally into it. And I said, I want to get certified as a coach because, Otto, as you probably know, the word coaching's thrown around a lot today. And some people are using the word coaching, but they're really telling. And a lot of people are coaching, but they don't have any certifications or training. So I got 125 hours of training on how to be a leadership coach, read all those books, got certified by the International Coaching Federation, ICF. It's the largest governing body around the world for coaches. And I got certified by them. And so as I was coaching people, they would be like, you can't do that, or I can't do that, that's too hard. Or I keep telling my employee, and I'm like, try a different approach. What I'm doing with you, do with them. Take the coach approach. And I was like, I should just write a book called Take the Coach Approach. So that was a impetus of my one-on-one coaching to help people. Number two is my dad planted a seed 30 years ago. Hey, you should write a book one day. And so we got to really know that our kids remember these things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so those were two of the reasons. The third one was really to leave a legacy. Once you write a book, you've left a legacy. So, it's going to be here, it's going to be here forever. And yeah, so I like to help others. So there was kind of a lot of different reasons to write the book. And I started during COVID, and COVID was very boring for me, and I don't like boring. And so I wanted to do something hard, and writing a book was hard because I'm not a great writer and I don't know anything about writing a book. I got it done, but it was the hard that I signed up for.
Yeah. Wow. Mark, if I can just briefly take you for that moment, then when you were thinking of hiring that coach, have you hired a coach previous to that, or no, first
No,
time?
no, yeah. First time I read Michael Hyatt's book called Living Forward. It's about what is your legacy? How are you gonna, what the legacy you're gonna leave? What legacy you're gonna leave with your spouse, legacy with your kids, legacy with your parents, legacy with your friends, legacy at work. What legacy you're gonna leave? And I was working on my legacy plan. And then I heard a podcast. Go Otto. There's podcasts out there. I heard a podcast about how you could get help with your legacy plan. And I was like, boom, I called the number. And that's kind of where it began.
And you said at that moment you felt you were hitting some type of glass ceiling, whether in your career or in business. I guess if you want to share what were you going through at that moment that made you decide to sort of pull the trigger and move forward with hiring this coach.
Yeah, it's like for me, my dad, like his generation, he worked for the government for 40 years and he hated a lot of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I'm not going to live an 8 out of a 10 life, And so whatever was an 8 out of a 10, that's what I wanted to talk to my coach about to grow in those areas. Some I was actually pretty good at, but I was still an 8 out of 10 in my own mind. Uh, so that was some of the things, how to maximize my time. I always want to maximize my time. So that's one of the subjects that we talked about, how to maximize my time. Or I run events, how to actually run an event and maximize this event. What is the purpose of the event? And
Mm-hmm.
a coach uh, is a sounding board for you, because when you're sitting down with a coach, you do 80% of the talking, the coach does 20% of the talking.
So,
And
uh-huh.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
And so the coach doesn't have to be an expert in the area. What they have to do is be an expert at being curious, listening, and asking questions. And sometimes it's good that they're not an expert in the area because then they ask what might be called a dumb question, but it makes you think once you're responding to them to that question it shows that they're ignorant about the topic. It makes you think and speak. And there's something happens in us, Otto, neurologically and in our heart when we say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we say it out loud, something about it becomes real. That's why when I started writing the book, I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to be a failure. But as soon as I said it out loud, I became accountable. As soon as I was running longer distance, secretly running longer distances and not telling anybody. But in my mind, I was working for a marathon. As soon as I said it out loud, I'm going to do a marathon. That changes everything once you say it out loud.
Yeah. I assume then, Mark, that you hiring that coach and now you being a coach yourself was a very good positive experience then, right?
Oh, 100%. Like it's changed my life, honestly, because the way they coach me and help me through things. And so even as a coach, I believe in it so much. I have a coach at 4 o'clock today. I meet with my coach, and so I will bring some glass ceiling issues, some pain point in my life. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's work, but they help me talk through it and discover what are the solutions that I need versus them telling me that. So now being on the other side, being the coach and helping people do that. And then in a more general term, just whatever role you play at your work, taking the coach approach without having to go through all the training and everything that I went through. You don't have to be an expert, but just having that mindset that I'm going to be curious, I'm going to listen, I'm going to ask great questions is a game changer.
Many of the entrepreneurs I've had on the show have coaches, different
Mm-hmm.
coaches for different things, different coaches for different stages in their life. And some people do not. If there's anyone out there listening or watching this and they're sort of questioning and not sure, and they know they can do better, they want to do better in their life, and they've thought about coaching, but are maybe on the fence, what do you recommend?
Yeah, what's the definition of insanity? Keep doing the same thing that you're doing and getting the same results. So you're going to have to do something different. And hiring a coach is something different. Try it for 6 months. You know, most coaches do like 6 months contracts. Some do once a month, some do twice a month, some do 30-minute sessions, some do hour sessions. But give it a shot, you know? And so does it cost money? Yeah, some are charging crazy money. But it's worth it to me because it's moving me forward.
Hmm.
And you think about the money that you might spend at a conference. Like you go to a conference, you sit there, you get a great notebook, you sit there for 3 days, hear some amazing speakers, you get some awesome stuff. And then what do? You go back and you go back to your day job and nothing's changed. Right.
Hmm.
So part of having a coach is that there's a monthly accountability. You know, so my coach will ask me about the last session. Hey, last session, you said you were going to do 1, 2, and 3. How'd it go with 1, 2, and 3? Well, I did 1 and 2. I didn't do 3. Why didn't you do 3? Well, this and this came up in my life. Okay, life stuff came up. Now, look, my coach is not my boss. They're not influencing my salary, but my coach, I respect my coach enough that I give them the power to hold me accountable. And sometimes we need accountable. And usually it's to one or two things and just making coaching simple. So coaching helps move people forward. Coaching's different than what people are trying right now. And coaching draws out of you what's inside of you to help you be a success.
You mentioned earlier, as far as meeting your, having an accountability call every month. Are you meeting with the coach, or let's say, are your students or your coachees are meeting with you weekly, monthly, biweekly? How quarterly? How does it work?
So whatever works for them, you know. Typically, most people are doing. Like you sign like a one. I do a 6 month contract for once a month. That's
Okay.
typically what I do. Now, some of my people say, "Hey, look, that's like a long time between. I want to do it. I want to do it in between. I want to make sure at least we have an email exchange about my goals and not wait 30 days till I forgot about them. But every 2 weeks, let's either have an email exchange or have a conversation about it. So that's kind of the rhythm. Now I will say this: I do what it's called I call personalized coaching. So Otto, you bring your personal thing that you want to me, and then we have a coaching session on that. Some people do what I call formula coaching, and that is, hey Otto, I wrote this book on how to be a better leader. And for the next 9 weeks, we're going to go through the 9 chapters on how to be a better leader. So you read a chapter, I read a chapter, and then I try to coach you on those topics to be a better leader, which is different. You know,
Sure, it
it's
is.
just different.
Yeah. I mean, I personally like the more personalized approach from what the two you're describing to me right now.
Yeah, yeah. Because you can personalize means you could say, hey, Mark, today my question is not even a pain point or glass ceiling. I want to be the best dad of 3 sons ever. I want to talk to you about that, what that might look like. So when my boys are graduating from college, I know I did everything. I even hired a coach to help me be the best dad ever to 3 sons. Like, what is that going to look like for you? Like, what value is that to
Hmm.
you? Like that's huge for you.
It is.
Or I want to blow up my podcast, or I want to blow up my real estate business. You know, like what is it? You know, what is that really worth to you? It's probably going to be a lot more worth to you than you're paying a coach.
Yeah. I'm sure your return on investment there is just going to be multiples compared to the
Yeah.
investment you're making for the coach.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
not even comparable. You mentioned earlier, Mark, you started writing the book during COVID. How was that experience with your first book and during COVID times?
Yeah. I'll I'll say it. Writing a book was hard, right? I'm not a natural writer, and I think now that I wrote my first one, and I was talking to authors before they wrote their book and learned some things. So one of the hard things is finding your writing rhythm. Okay. Some guys, some one guy told me, he said, I write 15 minutes every morning, even if it's bad. I just do it. It's got that habit. Another person said I write when I'm inspired. Another person said I take 3 weeks off and I just go away, I get alone and I crank out a book. Everybody had their own thing. My rhythm ended up being on Friday mornings, I would get up, I would get coffee, and that is it. I would not work out. I would not do anything else of my typical morning routine. And I would start to write. And I did the same thing on Saturdays. As I mentioned, my daughter played college lacrosse. So I went to a couple of her away games and I went a day early. So there you are in a hotel room. You're not thinking about your lawn or cleaning the garage out, or kids aren't coming to play with you. Wife isn't saying take the dog out. So you're dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
So number one hard thing was finding my rhythm. And the second thing, honestly, is I'm a person of faith. And so it's like, how do I didn't really want to include that in there because I wanted anybody to want to read it. Faith has kind of become polarized in our world some, but it's just who I am. I had to be who I am. So there's some of that in there. And that was a hurdle for me. Once I just said, I got to be me and let it flow. And then it came out. And so it's sold a good number of copies. People are liking it. And it's fun.
That's good. Was it self-published or through a publishing house? How was that?
So the way I hired that was the other thing, right? So when I got stuck and I realized, okay, number one is I don't want to become an expert at all the ins and outs of a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
Sure.
trying to learn how to write a book, much less all the ins and outs and the covers and the ISBN number and all that stuff. So there's a lot of ways to publish. And I won't get into all those ways. So I went to what is called a hybrid way. I went with a small company in Florida that somebody introduced me to called Two Penny Publishing. And they're kind of a hybrid. So what they do is I hired an author mentor and a writing mentor from them. And they had somebody to get my ISBN number. They had somebody design my cover. They kind of held my hand through the whole process. And now that the book is done, it's my book. They don't get any royalties. I paid them to help me write the book, and now I get all the royalties.
Sure.
Quote, or to me, they don't get any piece of it. So what they do is they link with Amazon. 70% of all books are published by Amazon right now.
Mm-hmm.
So my books are on Amazon and printed by Amazon. Now they take their cut, right? They take 40% of profit after the book is printed. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. So you can just go on Prime and click it and get it in a few days.
So Amazon makes it and distributes the book as well, does everything
Yes.
almost?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, if you want 10, you can go get 10. They're my distributor too.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's yeah. Whereas some people use the model, the My Pillow guy, right? So I don't know if you know him, but anyways, he wrote his story and he got 50,000 printed because they go, oh, the more you print, the less it'll cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's got 40,000 of the 50 still sitting in his warehouse. He can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's I don't have any sitting. I got 2 sitting right here. That's it.
That's it.
So, other guys is kind of a hybrid, like, oh, we want you to buy 1,000 to start, and they're sitting in your garage. So I don't really have any sitting in my garage. They're all sitting with Amazon.
Yeah. So Mark, the coach approach, what does it exactly entail? I know there's a few key principles there.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing I talk about is the possibilities, right? I have 4 sections to the book. Number one is possibilities. Like, how do we move from the impossible to possible? And part of that is a growth mindset, having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. I don't know if you read Carol Dweck's book. Have you heard of that book before, Otto?
What's the name of the book?
It's called Mindset, Growth of Mindset by Carol Dweck.
The last name, yeah,
D-W-E.
the last name rings a bell, Dweck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you see a lot of people posting her stuff out there. So the having the possibility mindset, thinking about possibilities of having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, believing something different is possible and acting differently. That's how we move to what are the possibilities when I'm coaching somebody or somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to start a podcast. Typically what happens is you've done the hard work to learn how to do a podcast, right? So you're like, oh yeah, let me tell you how to do it. And sometimes it's like, yeah, let me tell you how to do it. I'm Mr. Podcast now, right? So we feel good about telling people this stuff, but it doesn't, it would help them better if we started with some questions, right? They might decide after all the hard work that you've gone through to do a podcast, it's not as easy as it looks, man. And so I don't really want to do that. So asking them ask the possibility mindset. And then the second thing is of the coach approach is really the posture. And I talk about the posture of our head and our heart. So the posture of the head is being curious. If somebody had to be curious to invent this cell phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
This didn't exist at one point. Somebody had to think this was possible. Somebody had to think this pen was possible. Somebody had to think this headset was possible. I mean, so everything that's awesome around us didn't exist at one point. Somebody had to have a possibility mindset. And that's a part of the coach approach, is to bring that out in people and set them up with that. And then the second piece, as I mentioned, posture, which is head posture, being curious, active listening, thinking differently. And then the heart idea is that of humility and empathy and self-control. So if you're a young guy and you're on staff, you're 25 and your boss is 45, and you come into a meeting and he just stands up and says, all right, everybody, this is what we're going to do on the project. And then we're going to do this by this date. We've got to get this done. Okay, everybody, go do what you're supposed to do. That would be the telling approach. The coach approach would be like, hey, everybody, we want to climb this mountain. Let's get some ideas out here on how we're going to climb this mountain, how we're going to build this thing, how we're going to do whatever, something we've never done before. Now the 25-year-old goes, wow, I'm giving input to how to climb the mountain or how to build this thing. I feel great. I love working for this company. They actually want my input. They don't want me to just be a robot and go down the hall and do things. They want my input on how to make this better. So that's kind of but you got to have somebody at the top who's humble, who's willing to ask the questions. And then the process of coaching is actually, there's a lot of processes out there for coaching. I just simplified it for this book is, one, what is the outcome you want? How do I bring awareness to this outcome? And then what are the action steps that you want? Like somebody might come to you and say, hey, I want to do a podcast. And you ask them some questions to find out what they really want. What is the outcome that they really want? And they might say, oh, well, I want to tell more people about my business. Okay. But this is a part of listening. What might not be said is they might say, well, I want to be famous like so-and-so on his podcast or make a lot of money. Well, let's just have a little news flash. Not everybody gets famous from doing a podcast, and not everybody makes a lot of money. So you might want to think about a different way to become famous and make money other than podcast. So that's a part of the outcome, is to make it clear, what are we accomplishing? And Otto, you're in real estate, right?
Yeah, commercial real estate.
Commercial real estate. I'm pumping you up right now, but even though I just met you, but you're in commercial real estate. You got to be great at asking questions.
You have to,
right? You got to be great at listening too. So you're kind of taking the coach approach, but once you realize how important it is, and not every question is a good question, and how are your questions as a commercial real estate agent going to differentiate you from another person? Okay, there's all kinds of things: eye contact, handshake, leaving a bottle of wine after somebody wins something, or champagne, or whatever. Those are things people think are differentiating. So how could you be the best at asking questions and listening? That's a whole nother ballgame. And that's part of the coach approach. And then the last P, so the first one is possibilities, and then posture, and then process. And then the last P is really pivot, which is changing your habits. How are you going to, for me, I was a great teller. I met a guy named Bob, and Bob told me, he said, hey, I'm a part of TA. Really? Wow. How is TA? I've been a part of it for years. And I was embarrassed. I didn't know what TA was. And I said, hey, Bob, what's TA? And he said, have you heard of AA? And I said, yeah. Alcoholics Anonymous? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm a part of TA. I'm a part of Tellers Anonymous. He was joking, but he said, I'm a part of Tellers Anonymous. I've just been great. And when you stand up and you tell all the time, what you do is you develop followers. And if you stand up and you ask questions, you develop leaders. Think about that. If you're a part of Tellers Anonymous and you're always telling, you're going to develop followers. But if you ask questions, you're going to make them think, and you're going to develop leaders who can work and do things outside of coming to you for all the questions that they have. That's huge. And so I know for myself, in a lot of organizations, you rise up the ranks because you're a great teller. But it'd be better if you're developing leaders by asking great questions and listening well along the way. So now when somebody asks me a question or something like that, I usually think of what question do I want to ask them, and I switch it up and ask them a question to get them thinking, and they don't even realize what's happened to them sometimes. But it's going to draw the best out of them. It's for their good. So that's kind of the themes of my book in the coach approach. But simply, I would say being curious, listening well, asking great questions, ending with some action steps. That would really be the simple way of taking the coach approach, whether it's a 5-minute conversation, walking down the hall, you bump into each other next to your cubicle, or it's, hey, let's meet for an hour and let me walk you through some of the issues that or challenges we're dealing with.
You originally, the first one you mentioned was having that growth mindset. And I agree. I mean, the majority of everything we do is first starts in the mind. And you do come across some people that may not have that growth mindset. What can you do? Is there anything you recommend for them to do, or how we can change just that perception, that point of view that they have?
Yeah, somebody who has a fixed mindset I mean, honestly, it's the toughest person to coach, right? Most people who hire you to coach, they want to grow. So they've got a growth mindset, a growth attitude right out of the gate. I have done some corporate coaching where they hired me to coach 5 people, and they said, hey, we've hired a coach for you, meet with them. And 2 of the people had a fixed mindset. And it was painful for them because they didn't want to grow, and it was painful for me because they didn't want to grow. So it's really hard to unlock that. But I will say this: some of the things that are in my book about the growth mindset, people with a growth mindset see failure as an opportunity to grow. Those with a fixed mindset they say this is the limit of my abilities. I just can't do that. Your kids might say, Dad, I'm just not good at math. And I'm just not good at it. That's kind of a fixed mindset. Growth mindset says, let me keep trying. This is an opportunity for me to grow and to learn to do this different ways. So that's just one thing. I think the growth mindset says, I like to try new things. A fixed mindset says, I want to stick to what I know.
It's so true, and I'm seeing it right now with my little ones. My middle son is in 3rd grade, and he's learning certain multiplication tables, and I'm practicing with him. And he's like, Pop, I'm getting better. I'm like, see, Adam, that's what happens when you put in that time and that effort. With time, you will get better. And because before, just like, it's a fixed mindset, and they're children, and you're trying to coach them and show them. And it's a perfect example of what you just said.
Yeah. And one of the things I wish I learned this when I was a dad is the Carol Dweck talks the power of yet, right? So your son says, Dad, I'm just not good at math, and I got a C on the thing and on the test. And whatever. Say, the power of yet says you haven't mastered this yet. We're not going to give up. The power of yet is it's going to come. It's in that time. And so we have to be willing to lean into, whether it's business or with our children, to the power of yet.
I agree. And it's all about growing and just being open to it, because I do come across people, like you said, that don't have that growth mindset, more fixed, and there's also a lot of complaining involved with them. A lot of times they're just blaming other people, just pointing the finger instead of just the thumb your way, and work on you first.
Yep. So sometimes as I'm coaching, I try to turn a mirror on them and get them to look at themselves. And sometimes it works, it's not, but I don't know. After doing this 5 years, I would say that cracking the fixed mindset person is tough, but I think we need to start with our children, and we need to not give up.
Hmm.
You think about sports. I coached sports 15 years. Guys say I can't do this. I just can't do this. Can't do this. Well, this is a part of what you need to be able to do. Let's don't give up yet. Let's don't give up. There is a possibility of yet.
Yeah. Mark, and the book is fairly new, right? It just came out recently.
Yeah, just last month came out, and yeah, again, you can get on Coach Approach. You can get on Amazon, the Coach Approach, a better way to lead in business and beyond. And um, what they do when you launch a book in Amazon, they let you pick 10 categories to try to become a bestseller
Hmm.
with Amazon. And so I picked 10 categories for my book, and surprisingly, I was a bestseller in all 10 categories
Look at
for
that.
Amazon. So yeah, pretty humbling to think that that actually happened.
I love that. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
What would you say drives and motivates you now, Mark?
Yeah, helping others is what I like to do. I love to help others. My faith drives me to help others, but I think people, even without faith, want to help others, right? Just helping others is brings much more joy, and it also, leaves a legacy, plants seeds in other people's that lives way beyond you and spreads out way beyond you. When it's just all about me. In my book, I talk about the me monster. Me. Nobody wants to be around a me monster, right?
Yeah.
It's just like everybody wants to run the other way, but people want to be around somebody who wants to help them. So, uh, what drives me is helping others.
If there's anyone here in a leadership position listening to this, what advice would you give them as far as what maybe they can do or think differently to sort of grow better in that role and lead better?
Yeah, I think just admitting out loud, I want to grow. I want to be. I've been in this job for 30 years. I had one guy goes, I've done this for 30 years. There's nothing new under the sun. And then by the end of the call, I cracked him a little bit through some of my questions. He goes, "Wow, I never thought of that." Like
Yeah.
his number one thing he hated was doing year-end evaluations. I said, "Why do you hate doing year-end evaluations?" He goes, "I don't like telling people they're wrong." And I said, or they're not good. Do they already know that they're not good? He goes, yeah. And I said, why are you telling them? Just ask them the question. Then you don't have to tell them. Let them tell you,
Hmm.
right? And so he's like, wow, I never thought of that before. Um, but anyways, I would tell other leaders to keep to press in with the growth mindset and do things to help you grow. Listen to podcasts, read books, and challenge yourself to do something that's out of the normal. It'll grow. This book was a huge challenge for me, but the rewards have been amazing so far. Just the feedback and the rewards that I've gotten from doing something that I've never done before. And I would say consider hiring a coach. There's a lot of top executives. Everybody at the top level at Chick-fil-A has a personal coach that they encourage them to hire. And many of the business owners have a coach. They even have coaching inside of their whole system at Chick-fil-A, but the people hire a personal coach. So, yeah, so those are a couple of things.
So each franchisee owner has a coach.
Yeah, they have a coaching system inside of Chick-fil-A,
Oh, so
but then some
okay. Uh-huh.
they have it inside of Chick-fil-A, but then people also go outside of Chick-fil-A and hire a coach. So they kind of have a business coach that just focuses totally on business, but he's about cranking out some numbers too, right?
Sure.
For them for success. I mean, they're super successful,
Hmm.
but a lot of them have hired a personal coach, and I've worked with a few to help them move along. And then I think some CEOs, I've worked with some CEOs, and they've hired, some of them have hired people. And you might stay with a coach for 6 months or 12 months or 24 months. You don't have to marry him. I'm with the same coach now for 18 months. We're starting the next 6 months this afternoon
Okay.
um, because the coach is really helping me.
That's
And
good.
yeah.
You mentioned the success you're having with the Coach Approach book. Do you see maybe in the future a possible second book?
Oh, it's painful to
Too
think about
early?
that. To think about the. I have thought about it. So this book is the coach approach in business and beyond. Because I've coached sports so much and I've worked with so many coaches and athletes, I'm the thought that's come to my mind almost like chicken soup for the soul, and they have all the different versions.
Hmm.
Maybe the coach approach for sports coaches and beyond. So
Okay.
something that the coach, whether he's a college coach, pro coach, or your son's wrestling coach for first graders, something where they could say, okay, there's something in here for me of that. So I've kind of thought about that, but it'll be a little while off.
Okay. So I guess more niche or more focused then.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
Unless I right now I don't see something doing totally different, but uh, yeah, that's kind of
Okay.
my thinking right now.
Are there any specific habits or traits you feel that have helped you, whether on the business side of things or just personally?
Yeah, I totally have bought into Michael Hyatt's system of being full focused. I have a full focus planner that I use here. Michael Hyatt's things are this, and I've gotten some training from him, and I love talking about this with other people too. So thanks for asking a question. So he says, "What are your 8 to 10 goals for the year?" Number one is write them down. Some people do it electronically, but there's something about putting it on pen and paper that happens actually in your brain. So
Mhm.
what are your goals? And then what are your take those goals and say, what are your quarterly goals? What are the 3 things you want to accomplish this quarter to help you with the yearly goals? And then what are the 3 things you want to accomplish this week to help you with your quarterly goals, which are helping with the other goals? And then what are the 3 things you want to accomplish today that will help you with your weekly goals and your quarterly goals and whatever? So that whole cascading effect has really helped me and focused me on what I need to say no to and what I need to say yes to. And I think the other thing is the rituals. He calls them rituals. You can call them routine. So what is your morning ritual? Probably 40% of what you do or more every morning when you wake up, Otto, you don't even think about it. It's automatic. You don't have to go, let me think, I'm gonna brush my teeth. No, you just do it. Let me think if I'm gonna have a cup of coffee. No, you just do it. So there's a huge part that you don't even think about. And is your morning routine setting yourself up for success for the day? So I had to think through my morning routine, and I added drinking 16 ounces of water with my vitamins every morning because you're dehydrated and your brain is full of water. So you want to get water in as soon as you can wake up. So your brain is functioning as best as it can, right? So that's a new thing, a new routine I added to my morning rituals. And then, Otto, you can think about what is your work startup rituals. So when you start work, what do people do? They sit down, they open up their email, and they start, well, email, email, email. But is that the most important thing for you to do? Is that the best use of your time? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you need to spend 15 minutes scanning your emails and realize here's 2 urgent ones I need to deal with, but the rest can wait till 2 this afternoon. Then you can dive into what you decided is the 3 most important things that you wanted to get done today. So some of those things, habits and routines, rituals, have helped me, I believe, accomplish more.
That's great. Are there any specific challenges that you're going through right now for the business?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with the business that you don't know is like so writing the book, speaking about the book, all that kind of stuff is fun. There's all kinds of logistics like I'm learning with ordering books through Amazon and the author thing and like I don't want to deal with that, but you have to. And the biggest thing is like once you like this coaching business and I do speaking and training on these topics and go into places, the those are things that I love to do that I feel like I'm pretty good at. But you got to market it. Somebody's got to call you and want it. So
Hmm.
those are the things that are harder and that are challenges for me is getting the word out. Um, and of course, now that I've written the book, I'm getting all these messages on LinkedIn. Hey, I help you mass market. I help you do all this and do all that. And it's like, um, yeah, I don't know if I want to go that route.
Sure.
So I don't know. So
I understand. I understand. What do you know now, Mark, that you wish you would have known at the start of your career?
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to my mind with that is that really your work is two dimensional. And number one is the first dimension, or you could say three. I put two and three together. The first dimension is how do I do my job? Okay. So how do I, you're a computer programmer. I graduated in computer science. How do I create a computer program? How do I write the software? These are all things that I was educated on in college. Or how to be a better coach. I went through 125 hours training, but how to be a better coach. Those are all kind of the logistics, the first dimension. The second dimension really is the soft skills of relating to people, which we don't do training on. So that's why we say, oh, that guy's a computer geek. Let him go sit in the cubicle. He doesn't know how to relate to people. Okay. And somebody can be great at great at marketing and doing the real estate things, but if they're not good listener and they're not good at asking questions and they're not good relationally, they don't have the soft skills. So I wish I knew long ago that I was getting trained in the first dimensional skills, tactical things of my job, but yet there's this whole side that are relational, soft skills that need to be addressed. And that's what my book addresses. My book talks about listening, empathy, asking great questions, all of these kind of things, curious mindset. I don't know about you, Otto, but I didn't get that at the Ivy League of the Eastern Shore, Salisbury University. I didn't get those things. So,
I agree, and I think having emotional intelligence, you'll lead a much happier and well-rounded life.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be liked by your spouse, by your kids, by your friends, by your neighbors, by the people you work with. And I'm just as I get out there and meet with people and do some training, I'm just amazed at how many bosses are don't have the soft skills. They're like, hey, dude, I'm paying you a check, go get it done. Don't, and they're just like, people want to enjoy their work. They want to enjoy who they work with, and people aren't going to stay around. And I know on LinkedIn, we connected on LinkedIn. Look, I read three articles. Three articles were posted last week on the Great Resignation, right?
Yes.
People are resigning left and right, and it's not from the company. It's from they're leaving a boss. And bosses need to wake up and say, I need to change because people aren't leaving. Yes, some are leaving for a better salary. There is some of that. Yes, people are leaving because they don't want to go back to the office. They want to be remote 5 days a week. Yes, there's some of both of those. But really, it's about many people are leaving the boss.
Yeah. No, I agree. Coming to an end here now soon, Mark. What does the future hold for you and the book, the business?
Yeah, I'm excited to get more coaching clients and work one-on-one with people. I'm excited to go out and speak about this. As I said, I was in Rhode Island last week. I spoke to Bryant University. I spoke to the PMI, Project Management Institute, up there in the Ocean State. I'm speaking tonight to a men's group. I'm speaking in a couple weeks on Saturday in Baltimore at a men's retreat for businessmen. Yeah, so just speaking and sharing the concepts with it, that's what's really exciting for me.
That's great. And when you're not busy speaking and promoting the book or writing, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
Golf. Golf, yeah. I took up golf a few years ago, and I'm 58, so 58-year-olds aren't wrestling anymore. I coached all my kids in volleyball, golf, uh, soccer, lacrosse, everything. So my hobby was coaching for a lot of years. Now that my kids are all grown, we're almost empty nesters. I can do my own thing, and so I love to golf. It's a challenge for me to improve. It's a humbling, frustrating game, but I enjoy being outside. I enjoy being with others playing golf.
That's nice. If people want to learn more about you, Mark, or know where to get the book, where can they go to find out more information?
Yeah, thanks, Otto. So the book is on Amazon. Just look up The Coach Approach, Mark Stevens, and then my website is www.coachmarkstevens.com, and Stevens is spelled Stephens, coachmarkstevens.com. They could email me, Mark at coachmarkstevens.com.
Great. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show again. It was a fun time.
Yeah, Otto, I great. Yes, great questions. Thanks. I enjoyed it, and hopefully somehow it helps somebody grow in some small way.
Oh, I'm sure it will. Thank you again. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.